Good evening, everybody. I've got some thoughts and goals to share with you. It's Monday, November 2nd, which means tomorrow is going to be the presidential, it's election day. So we're going to know in a couple weeks here after all the mail-in ballots come whether Biden or Trump is going to be our president. But that's not what this video is about. This video is going to take place and drop on election day. But it's going to be about what America should be thinking about or could be thinking about after all the crazy election season is over and done with, and whatever happens at that point. We know what got me thinking about all this is just thinking about US history and what cultural values that Americans have and what should be propagated forward. So I'm going to go off on a few. There's going to be I think 3 or 4 videos in this series where I'm going to spend the first one talking about civics and civic duties of what people should be thinking about, not just their rights, but what their responsibilities could be, and how that actually, it's especially important for millennials and young people, and Gen Z, of which my little brother and little sister are a part of, to, in what ways you give back and actually make your country better and stronger, because that's really what we need. We need to be a little bit more unified, other than this just crazy political system and season that happened in 2016 and then now in 2020. So the first video is going to cover stuff like that. The second video is going to be about U.S. history, and the third video is going to be about one period of time right after the Revolutionary War. So if you're interested in that, be on the lookout. Let's start. So I kind of read an interesting little article, and it got me thinking, what are your civic rights and responsibilities for your civic duty? What does it mean to have a civic duty? I would say that participating in knowing about politics and then registering to vote and then voting. That way, all the discussion and dialogue that you do on the internet, you can do lots of it. You can do none of it. You can do a medium amount. You can just browse Twitter and see what other people are doing. But becoming informed on it is a part of your civic duty. So it's not shaming people and judging them if you don't go out to vote. But I think even if you don't care and you've never voted, so if you're 19 years old and you've never voted and you missed this election, fine. Be aware of it. Don't let it go crazy. But I would say care if you don't care at all. And if you care way too much, reassess what your values are. Do you just like to argue with people? Do you just like the chaos of it? Or do you actually want to get along with your fellow man, your fellow Americans? So it's kind of like both sides of the extreme. And I just see that a lot on the internet. And it's easy for me to disengage from that. But when I see it, I watch Destiny, Stephen Bonnell, one of the streamers. He does lots of debates with people. He started about 4 years ago, and he's been doing debates. And the people he's debating and the kind of concepts they're talking about is democracy versus communism, or the wars that America has gone in, or the bad parts of immigration, and just all this crazy stuff that I know it's a debate, and I know most of the entertainment is just how we can dunk on someone else. But what is the parts where they meet in the middle? What are the parts that we can agree upon and work from there? So if you're a communist, what parts that your values stem from can we have a conversation so that if your interest really is to make the country better, and it's not just anti-America, because in the Portland protests where they're knocking down statues of George Washington saying, colonizers, slave owners, and they're completely disregarding all the good that was done to set this country up. I mean, the fact that in the 1700s, we had a revolutionary war against taxation without representation, and, revolutionaries got together and fought against the British and made our own independence and created this phenomenal country by just, literally a deistic atheistic model where it wasn't God giving down upon the queen or king, and then the queen or king delegates to their lords, the House of Lords, or the to take care of the people. So God takes care of the king and queen. The king and queen take care of the people, and so they're divinely right. So if you grew up in the wrong class to the wrong family in England, there's no way you can make it to the top and run the country. I mean, just they don't have the same mindset. But in America, that is the American dream: is you can come over as an immigrant, and it might be really tough for that first generation. Let's say you're 30 years old, you immigrate to the United States, and you don't know the language. But if you stay for 30 years, you have children in this country, then there's a good chance that those kids could potentially be president one day. Maybe not president. That's a lot of luck involved, but they could grow up to be, college educated, Americanized, still of the world. You don't have to be like, you can be lower. You could come from a lower class society in Singapore. And if you get to the United States, you can become middle class, upper middle class, or better, and in the top country in the world. And so in that way, the American dream still is something that you shouldn't be tearing down. And so I just think that there's people in this country who are, just like unaware. Oh, sorry about that. That's not supposed to be this one. There's just people in this country that are unaware of all the good things. And, they talk about their civic rights a lot. And of course you have your civic rights. And if you feel the government is in what's the word, impinging on your rights, then you have a civic duty to protest. So of course, but people forget that you have responsibilities too. And I don't hear this talked about enough. So I found this thing, just like one Google search away. So what are some of your civic rights according to the government? So this is like citizenship rights and responsibilities. I was thinking this is something the left and the right can agree on, because left people kind of want open borders. That's fine. Anyone's welcome. If you're on the right, you want closed off borders and only allow really competitive, like doctors, engineers from other places to come here and to make this country as profitable as possible. That's Trump's strategy. He's brought on a lot of people from the right over to his side from that kind of rhetoric. So, how would you want your citizens, if they were applying for citizenship to this country, what rules would you make them aware of, so that they have to know these rules and responsibilities before they're let in the club that is America? And it's what we would reasonably expect other people coming to this country. What about what we, like me, we were born in the United States, so native born Americans, what are yes, you have rights. Of course you have rights. What are your responsibilities? So maybe you've read ahead, but I'd like to go through these. Let's start with the rights. You have a civic right to a freedom to express yourself, freedom to worship as you wish, right to a prompt, fair trial by jury. You have a right to vote in elections for public officials. You have the rights to apply for federal employment requiring U.S. citizenship. You have the right to run for elected office. You have the right to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's as American as it gets. But what are your responsibilities? You have to support and defend the Constitution. This could be contentious because, it was a fact that the people who wrote the Constitution were slave owners. So they weren't infallible. And so to listen to what they wrote in the Constitution, you're civically obligated to do so. That's one of your responsibilities. Yet you can disagree with some of the men that wrote it, because, it's fair criticism to say these were, white landowners, men in the 1700s. So they were upper middle class and above, and they had some wealth and they knew how to read and write, and they probably weren't just farmers their entire lives. So there's some, and just the first thing I think of is those are just the people that did it. I mean, these are the people that stood up and they were competent enough to, like, you have to be really, really smart to come up with in a group of people, to get them all together, to say the right things, to write the Federalist Papers, to create the Constitution, and think of all the things that went wrong with England and prevent those same things from happening. So, who could have done this but these men at this period of time? And it's above the men themselves. You would have loved for it to have been, Native American women, lesbian, etc. You would have wished that there was more representation there, but they did lay down the foundation so that everybody can be included in this system. So, yeah, feel free to disagree. I'm not trying to make a political thing. I'm just trying to think aloud through these problems. Like, how can we make the country better on this election day? The next responsibility: stay informed of the issues affecting your community. I think this is really solid advice because you have incentive to do so. This is not telling you have to know what wars we're getting into. What's going on outside? Like, what's going on with your local library, with your local city, your local town. Just know. It's like good to know your neighborhood. Like, know your neighbors, maybe know what they need. That's part of a civic responsibility. It actually makes the country a better place if we all did a little bit more of this. Third one is participate in the democratic process. I feel that's important. You obviously don't have to vote, but you would feel more included if you did, even if you live in a state that your vote doesn't count, doesn't matter. Something about just getting out there, it gives you, like, I mean, you have responsibility. Like, you're part of the process. Things aren't happening to you. You are doing the things. It just psychologically, I know that's different. Like, part of the coping mechanism when someone's really scared or anxious or depressed is, like, psychologists and psychiatrists will, and I'm not trained in this, but this is what they do, is are you approaching the problem like, I'm backed up in the corner with my back against the wall and the problem is facing me and it's too big and I can't defeat the problem, versus you staring the problem going, let's figure this thing out, whether it be your childhood or, traumatic experiences or people holding you back in your life, like negative, maybe your parents are assholes and you got to stop talking to them, or you got to limit the relationship, or maybe you're in a really, your sister was really abusive to you and still has been, and you just need to cut ties with them or stand up against them, or maybe you're getting bullied by your boss at work. It's how are these problems happening to me, or am I facing them head on? And that's participating in the democratic process in a small scale as it relates to civic duty. Let's keep on going. Respect and obey federal, state, and local laws. Most people think of this as your civic duty, right? Just follow the laws. It's more involved than just follow the laws. It's follow the spirit of the laws. And then something that's important is when the law is not a good one, it goes against your morals, it's actually your civic duty to go against the law, protest the law. That's what Martin Luther King Jr. did with peaceful protests. He broke many, many laws so that he could he didn't have to follow the unjust system, which in place was systematic racism. And we all learned about that in civics class growing up. So respect the rights, beliefs, and opinions of others. Participate in your local community. Pay income and other taxes honestly and on time to federal, state, and local authorities. This is a big one because it's actually a big deal when our president has said, I don't pay taxes. I understand that a rich, cocky billionaire sees it as showing off to say I don't pay taxes. But as the president of the United States, a lot of people look up to you and get how they should act in a civic capacity from their president, from their leader. And when the leader says, I don't pay income taxes, and it's not smart to pay income taxes, you are not acting in a civic responsible manner. I mean, you cannot agree. I don't like to pay taxes. I don't like to pay taxes. Most of us don't like to pay taxes, but it is your civic responsibility. It makes your community better. I actually changed I remember one time I had an argument with my mom over this because she said, she's sending us to private school. And she's like, why do I have to pay taxes to make the schools around us better? The public schools. If I'm not going to send you to public school, they should take that off the taxes because why are we paying for that? And I actually changed her mind at this when I was like 14 years old. And my best friends growing up were my friends Jonathan and Anthony. They were two brothers. They lived behind me. They went to public school, and after school, we would all hang out. Well, they were really, really smart. And how were they smart? Well, because they went to really good public schools in our area. And so I was like, Mom, would you want me to hang out with the neighborhood kids and them not to have good schools? And she was like, oh, right. You're not just paying for someone else. You're paying for your entire community. And if we all just thought about that for 5 extra minutes per year, we would not be as opposed to paying taxes. And it's actually a good thing to not necessarily give to the government, which wastes it. I'm against that. I don't like that. But in terms of free education and making making your roads better, making your libraries better, all these are part of acting in a society of people that get along. So, yeah, and you can see where I very much do not agree with President Trump on this area. I mean, it's irresponsible. To serve on a jury when called upon. A lot of people joke about this, and I don't want to sound too serious. Get out of jury duty if you don't want to do it. But I know if I ever get called for jury duty, and I have not yet, I'm going to be excited to go. Because I like law and I'm a dork like that. I don't mind doing stuff, but it's also more than that too. I view it as my responsibility. So I want to participate in the process. And like, if I have to be bored for 5, days during my week or longer, it's part of the process. Just being responsible. It's like doing chores around your house, right? Like you don't want to do them, but it makes for a better place to live in. And if you don't do it, then the people around you, your housemates, your spouse, your siblings, whoever you live with, they're going to suffer if you don't do your part, and you would want them to do their part. So this is just a broader version of that. Defend the country if the need should arise. This is something that my generation is, we just think very differently. I do like this part in that it's serve your country. This is a good way. My father was in the military, and I just know lots of people that are in the military, but less so millennials. So it's just something to think about. All right, that's everything I wanted to cover. I will catch you in the next video. Let me know if you like this. Leave a comment, interact. I like talking about stuff like this. So let's keep it going. See you guys in the next episode about U.S. history.